just like to welcome everyone to this special board meeting for September 11th. We're going to do this very brief meeting and that will flow immediately into our work session. So before we start tonight, I would like to invite you all to stand with me and we're going to take a moment of silence because it's in honor of the 9/11 victims. Okay. Thank you very much. Dr. Tiller and I were at West today when we had students climbing the bleachers, and he partook of that with a backpack on. So I just thought it might be nice today to recognize the day it is and to remember. So, all right, we're going to move into our meeting. Kinsey, can you do the roll call, please?
Becker.
Here.
McCoy.
Here.
Leighton and Warren.
Here.
Welch.
Here.
Lyerly.
Here.
Mills.
Here.
Gerlach.
Here.
Okay, we have 6 members in person and 1 remote. And we're going to go right into action items. Would someone please read the motion?
I move that the resignation of staff as presented be approved.
Second.
Questions or discussion? Kinsey?
Online voting is now open.
I need to do a voice vote. I'm having problems with my computer. Vote yes.
Andrew, are you able to vote?
We can't hear you, Andrew.
I'm going to try one more time and otherwise I will voice vote. There we go. I think I did. Did I electronically vote now?
Yes,
it
it
work?
came through.
Okay.
All votes have been entered and the motion is carried with all board members voting in favor.
Thanks. Next is transfer of staff. Would someone read the motion, please?
I move that the transfer of staff as presented be approved.
Second.
Okay, discussion or questions? Kinsey?
Online voting is now open.
I vote yes.
All votes have been entered and the motion is carried with all board members voting in favor.
All right, next is awarding of contract for West High School weight room addition and alterations. Would someone read the motion, please?
I move that IEI General Contractors Incorporated be awarded the bid package 1, West High School Weight Room Addition and Alterations Project in the amount of $3,217,120 as presented be approved.
Second.
Any questions or discussion? Kinsey?
Online voting is now open. All votes have been entered and the motion is carried with all board members voting in favor.
That completes this agenda. With that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Okay, we are adjourned. We're going to go directly into our other meeting and we need to take the roll call again. Kinsey?
Gerlach.
Here.
Here.
Lyerly.
Here.
Welch.
Here.
Leighton and Warren.
Here.
McCoy,
Here.
Becker.
Here.
Okay, all board members are present. 6 are here and 1 is remote. And we also are joined at the table by a member of the Intercity Student Council. Would you please introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Viva Winkler. I'm a senior at Southwest and I'm the president of Intercity Student Council.
As usual, please partake of our conversation whenever you are moved to do so. And the next item on the agenda is our public forum. So if you are in the audience and you'd like to be at our public forum, there are forms that you fill out and hand them to Kinsey. Otherwise, we just have one person, Maria Lara. You're up, and so state your name, your address, and you have 5 minutes. Is that turned on? No. Andrew, can you hear her? There,
Yes.
we heard that.
The battery might be. I feel all.
I'll speak
Go ahead,
fast.
give it a try.
Okay,
Everyone, my name is Maria Lara and my home address is 2532 South Huntington Way in Concord, Wisconsin. We want to thank you for the opportunity to be able to speak to you one more time and certainly apologize for having my back to a few individuals in the room. My comments are as follow. We know that the district's financial concerns are real and legitimate, and we know that we can do better than FEMA 12.1. Since last spring, parents, community, and groups have shared their issues with FEMA 12.1. We disagree with the manner in which the facility task force was expected to resolve the district's fiscal cliff. The selection process, the instructions that the members were given, and the response that they were given when they raised concerns or questions. Our disagreement was in full display last spring and early summer, illustrated by the 900 signatures garnered by the petition to stop the vote on FEMA 12.1 on June 5th, and the comments made at the open forum. Still, the legitimate concerns related to 12.1 persist, especially with the closure of WIPIA and the board's plans to potentially close 10 next. At the center of the concern is equity in education, something that we all value, the board, the community, Linda, myself. We have disagreed until since then on how this equity in education can be attained. Imagine our relief in seeing the 4 K-8 facilities resolution, which directs the district to quote, initiate the necessary activities to assess the impact of community educational pathways and student safety, end quote. The assessment would, quote, ensure that number 1, the comprehensive set of investments and divestments across various communities are equitable. 2, the boundary revisions associated with the proposed transition to 4 K-8 facilities minimize change for students, families, and district operations when possible. 3, all board-approved educational pathways remain intact. 4, the resulting school populations are more equally diverse, integrated than present populations. And finally, 5, transportation services are not negatively impacted, end quote. This assessment also calls for the activities such as, quote, engaging a reputable third party to study the community impact of the school closures and the subsequent relocation of student populations proposed by the Facility Master Plan Task Force. It is in this type of assessment that we can agree and strive to attain equity in education. There's an opportunity to shape the Green Bay area public schools for generations to come, building the future of Green Bay area public schools on a foundation of trust and equity is the only way that it will pass the test of time. To ensure trust and equity continues to be the focus, we want to continue to build relationships with the board and the district. To allow us to do so, we ask that you expand the assessment described in 4 K-8 facilities resolution to all future decisions and for good measure to apply it to past decisions related to schema 12.1. This would mean that you would use before any other action this type of assessment. That includes the possible decision of closing tanks and also any other work related to school district closure of facilities or schools. It would also mean a post-evaluation of all these past decisions and any that you might take tonight. By applying the same type of assessment to all decisions, past, current, and future, related to schema 12, we can ensure consistency, reliability, and promote trust. Once again, these are exciting times. The opportunity to shape the Green Bay area public schools for generations to come on a foundation of trust, equity, consistency is possible by applying the same assessment to all current, past, and future decisions. It will allow the new Green Bay area public school districts to pass at that time. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else? Okay, we're going to move on. The next item is referendum updates. And Josh is going to give us a little bit about the update. I personally was at Preble last week and was very impressed with the new parking lot there. I know parking lots aren't exciting, but people use them every single day. And Preble's is used particularly heavily, and it's gorgeous. So and then I also drove by the new field, which the ribbon cutting is, I believe, this Friday. And that is also beautiful. And I know it's not quite done yet, but the work that's been done there is beyond impressive. So take it away, Josh.
Yeah, well, I guess we'll start at Preble. The field will be available for competition this Friday, the 15th. That will be the first home game played on that the new field. It is really beautiful. So I'd recommend going and checking it out. You should be aware that the track hasn't been surfaced yet. So you can see where the track is, but there are no lines or anything like that. That'll happen after that first football game. We'll get that surface on with the lines. To, I guess, summarize the updates since the last time I gave this update to the board, the major changes are that the board awarded construction contracts to 2 of the Edison projects, the one for the windows and the one for lighting and ceiling. The board just minutes ago awarded the general contractor contract for the west remodeling that includes a weight room addition, an expansion of the wrestling room on the second floor there, and a renovation of the trainer and rep space, along with some locker rooms, the gyms, new bleachers. So all of that is in that motion that you passed just a moment ago.
Josh, just if people don't remember this, I remember when the referendum was being put together and learning that Edison still had its original windows. They were like decades old, and we're finally going to be replacing those. So I think that's and again, not exciting, but will actually impact the quality of life for people who are in that building all day long.
Yes, I agree. Other than that, I mean, it's only been about 2-3 weeks since the last time I talked to you. So those are the major updates, and we'll continue to have this item on the agenda for all of your work sessions and regular board meetings.
Does anyone have any questions or anything that they'd like to add? You're all going to get tired of hearing me say this, but every time we have these updates, to me, it's just a good opportunity to remind people of the good relationship we have with the voters of this community and how they have stepped up again and again to invest in our schools in ways that you can see and ways that you can't see, but it's important work, and And I'm just really grateful to the people who voted for this resolution, Brian.
Going off that as well, it's nice to see the partnership, especially between the city and the school district. Hopefully we can get the pedestrian signage taken care of and the dance playground and those other ones that are out there, but just the partnerships that we have, especially using our city parks, like the Edison track and everything, that improvements that the community can use as well. So thanks, Josh.
After I went to Preble, I drove by Edison and they were having soccer practice, but people were walking. I know that that gets used by the community heavily for walking. The pickleball courts are right there as well. The relationship with the city, I'm glad you mentioned that because we have a complex relationship. A lot of our buildings are right next to city property. Sometimes some of our things are on city property, so that is complicated often, but we get it done. So go ahead.
Which is why we continue to not see the east parking lot when I drop my daughter off, because that's a city parking lot. So any city council members that are listening to the school board meeting, let's get that fixed.
To clarify, we would assist in the funding of that, but it must be done in coordination with the city.
Yeah.
We also plan on coordinating with the city on the tennis courts over there at East, right next to that parking lot by Joanne Stadium.
Yeah, that parking lot is used all summer long by people that aren't using schools. It's a city parking lot. So, okay. All right. Anything else? Okay. Thanks, Josh. Okay, next is update on the board resolution related to facilities master planning task force recommendations pertaining to Tank Elementary. And I believe Dr. Tiller will be talking about that.
Yes, board members, thank you. At this time, we don't have any updates for the board. We'll be coming forth in October with some updates for you.
Okay, thank you. The next is regarding the same thing regarding the referendum question. Is it the same? I'm assuming it's the same. Yeah.
So the preliminary design for the JDAL to West High School and or district office, we have preliminary guidelines right now, but nothing's been said fast. But we are beginning the RFP process for the architectural design for the new West Side Elementary School. So we can be ahead of the game with that piece.
Okay, so basically, these are all in the works, but it will be next month, probably.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes, we'll bring something to you then.
Okay, very good. Then, let's see here. So then let's move on to 6, which is, oh, go ahead.
I understand that the RFP for the architectural assessment or work for the new elementary school has begun. Also, I think there is a November deadline-ish for project list that would be part of the referendum question. Ultimately, is that going to be part of that October update as well? Or is it inappropriate to have an expectation that we'll be at project list by next month?
So-
Vicky's nodding off camera there. Go ahead.
So it'll be a project list, exactly.
Okay, so we look forward to seeing that next month. And then, okay, so next is we're going to talk about the advisory committee charter for the study of facilities master planning task force. Let's see here. Go ahead.
So quickly, if you go out, there's a new version that's published. If did you take a PDF of it and post it? That's fine because I made updates to it this weekend. That's what I was going to ask. But there's a new version posted in Drive that should be shared for viewing for everyone. It has the contents of our conversation around membership is been integrated in there. There has also an update to the purpose statement that I would like everyone to kind of take a look at. But at this point, I think that that charter is kind of ready for us to go through the finalist presentations for the consultants that we're looking at on September 19th, and then integrate their information into the charter. I don't know that there's much left right now. If there are any updates that anyone wants to make to the responsibilities portion of the charter, please take a look at that this week, and if we want to have a conversation about that. But really, that's kind of the last portion that hasn't been talked about in advance of the 19th. Also, there has been information from the district about basically who will represent the district and be made available to that committee as they do their work. So if there aren't any other questions as far as a debate, or I know that if we can entertain any conversation, but I don't think it's necessary this time.
Okay, go ahead, Laura.
Could you remind us where we go to find the updated? It's in Google Drive.
It is. If you go to your Google Drive, it's a document that's been shared with you. So there's a section to the left where you can navigate to that.
Go ahead. I also wanted to clarify that based on the information that went out to look for an organization to come in and do this, we did include equity, like an equity analysis within that RFP. Is that correct?
That's correct. So that was part of the RFP that was written. It was up to the external organizations to respond and demonstrate their ability to do that kind of work. But bringing that up, the change to the purpose statement was an attempt to also integrate what we all desire into the purpose statement. And I'll just read that real quick. The new purpose statement reads, to assist consultant name in developing a set of boundaries required to implement the school consolidations and closures proposed in the resolution entitled Board Resolution related to the Facility Master Planning Task Force recommendations pertaining to community impact of repurposing schools to for K through 8 facilities, and proposed school boundary changes approved on June 5th, and any Green Bay Area Public School District Board of Education directed updates to that resolution. Boundaries should be developed to ensure equity and the continued diversity of school populations, right? The community shall present, the committee shall present those recommended boundary changes to the Board of Education by a date that we negotiate with the consultant, given their requirements. So try to put equity and diversity into the purpose, because the speaker tonight was right? This was born out of a resolution where we're looking to make sure that any of the changes to the district's boundaries in support of a K go through an assessment and make sure that the demographics and the transportation requirements don't overly impact one population over another, and do that work. So I think that the combination of the RFP and how it was written, the charter for the committee, and the resolution, I think communicates a desire for that work to happen.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, with that, we're going to move on to B, update on RFP for boundary and equity analysis. I think this is where we're going to talk about when we do meet with these potential consultants, we're going to have the use of the rubric, the rubric that was used when you guys went, when James and other members of staff went through the selection process. So Kinsey now has that, and it's been sent out to everybody. Just a blank copy of that. Did everyone receive that? Oh, I, oh, I'm very sorry. You will all be receiving that. And that you can use that for guidance when we listen to their, presentations next week. So. All right. Any other questions regarding that? Any other discussion regarding that? Okay. Okay, next is discussion regarding placement of the gifted learner program at Leonardo da Vinci School. Claude, I think you're going to take that.
Yes, so it is the recommendation to keep Da Vinci at its current location. I want to read to you how the team came up with this recommendation. The resulting plan was one of the criteria was the resulting plan should respect recent investments and prioritize the utilizations of the newest facilities. So that was one. We respected that there have been a recent investment in Da Vinci. And a move to Webster Elementary would require additional investments into Webster School. Another key point is the resulting plan should target resulting operational cost fund 10 by 10%. Moving Da Vinci to Webster does not create any short or long-term savings. That was one of the key points. And our last key point is any boundary revisions associated with the proposed schools consolidation should as much possible be minimized change for the Green Bay area students, families, and district operations as opposed to what was presented. Since Leonardo da Vinci is a school with no boundaries, keeping Da Vinci in the future task force efforts and boundary study only provided long-term uncertainty for the Da Vinci students, staff, and families, which seem unnecessary. When any change to Da Vinci would not serve the district overall goals of addressing aging facilities, declining enrollment, and projected budget deficits. Those were the criteria that we used up, and that's why we make, as a team, we made the recommendations to the board.
Okay. Questions, discussion? Brian?
I'm looking at board docs and it keeps showing up a different spot on there, but what's our next plan on action on this then? Does this come to a vote then this week? I mean, what's the next step with it? I'm trying to find what you're reading from. It's not showing up where I'm.
Yes, so the next step would, as we action, that vote on 25th board meeting, that you accept our recommendation to keep Da Vinci at its current location and remove it from the resolution.
Okay, any other questions? Okay. Thank you, Dr. Tiller. Go ahead, Laura.
For clarification, this will be voted on at the regular board meeting later this month. So we'll have opportunity to have further comment or discussion on the 28th. Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
All right.
25th. Don't tune in the 28th.
Okay, yeah. Okay. Okay, next is the pupil non-discrimination self-evaluation. And I believe Abby will be coming to oh, and Mr. Flood. Oh, Dr. Khan, okay. Ms. Tilkins?
There we go. All right, can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Bring it a little bit closer. All right, well, I hope everyone had the opportunity to review our pupil non-discrimination and equality of educational opportunities self-evaluation ahead of time. It was attached with the board agenda. As you can tell, it's quite a lengthy document. Oh, perfect, thank you. And we just really wanted to hit on some of the key areas of the data that we reviewed. kind of go into what DPI was looking for. And then I have some members of the team who helped put all of this together here. So if anyone has specific questions, they're the experts here on their sections. So they can certainly answer those questions for you. All right, so why?
Oh. Go ahead, Laura.
Could we have the members at the table introduce themselves just for
Oh,
everybody else?
Yeah, I'm very
Thank
sorry.
you.
Yeah, that helps. Go ahead.
So I'm happy.
Abby Tilkins, I'm the Title IX coordinator and student discrimination coordinator.
Got the right one. All right. Tim Flood, Administrator for Co-curricular Programming.
Eric Kahn, Associate Director of Teaching and Learning, and I work with our college and career readiness programs.
Okay. Thank you, Laura. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you. So every 5 years, per Wisconsin law, the DPI requires us to evaluate the status of non-discrimination and equality of educational opportunity in our school district. This year, there were 8 areas of review. Last time there were only 3 areas, so DPI certainly bulked up their review process and what they wanted us as districts to look at. So we're looking at old data right now from the last 5 years. They did clarify that we're only required to report on 3 years of data. So the review was focused on the following school years: 2019, 2020, 2020, 2021, and 2021-22. And so to meet this standard, we had to evaluate the status of our non-discrimination and equality of educational opportunity in all of those 8 areas there. So school board policies and administrative procedures, enrollment trends in classes and programs, methods, practices, curriculum, and materials used in instruction, counseling, and pupil assessment and testing, trends of patterns of disciplinary actions, including suspensions, expulsions, and handling of pupil harassment, participation trends and patterns in the school district support of athletic, extracurricular, and recreational activities, trends and patterns in awarding scholarships and other forms of recognition and achievement provided or administered by the district, school district efforts to achieve equality of educational opportunity and non-discrimination, and then also reviewing our school district technology, including our electronic communications by school district staff. And so we also have to provide the opportunity for participation by students, teachers, administrators, parents, guardians, and residents of the district. And we were able to use some of our data from our latest data collection survey from 2021 and 2022 that reviewed actually all of the data that we set forth here and reviewed in our report. So we were able to kind of show what everyone had to say about that type of data, their comments, and then that actually formed into our equity and inclusion diagnostic survey as well.
Abby, I have a question. First of all, this is just a huge amount of accountability to the state of Wisconsin.
Yes.
Yes. Do voucher schools and private schools have to do this?
That's a good question. I don't, no, they don't have to.
Okay. I just wanted. Thank you.
Yeah.
Put that on the record.
Yeah, that's a good question. It's just our public schools who have to complete this task. And so this survey that was sent out to students, parents, staff during that year, it was available in many different languages as well. So it just wanted to highlight the fact that we were able to have that opportunity for our community members, students, teachers, and staff to comment on the data that's included in this report. Okay. And then I kind of broke it down by different categories. So when putting this together, we certainly collaborated a lot as a district, and it was really great to see everyone working together so well, from the teaching and learning department, student services, athletics, and really just trying to get all of these different questions answered, because especially with the 5 new questions, we didn't have any data to look at on how to answer those questions. So it was certainly quite the process of getting this started and figuring out how we wanted to answer those questions. And so for teaching and learning, I also noted at the top which areas, 1 out of 8 that we're talking about here. So we're talking about 1, 2, and 7. So we looked at enrollment trends in classes and programs. And so that included our college credit opportunities, our AP classes, our IB, our dual enrollment. We really focus, and Eric can speak to this too if you guys have any questions, but we really focused on implementing academic planning tools to allow students to plan for those courses because we were noticing that some students weren't as involved in these courses. And I think really having that plan of action of what a student can take throughout the entire school year really gives them the opportunity to enroll in more options. We looked at our industry recognized credentials where they're offering more pathways for certification for opportunities for students, trying to expand that even more to get more students involved. We looked at our gifted and talented program and we expanded our eligibility for that program as well. And then we also looked at our achievement data. So we looked at our ACT testing scores, ACT Aspire, and forward testing. And those are all actually available on WISE data and really looking on improvements in our curriculum and instruction and assessment to see as a way to increase student achievement scores. I will say too, especially, and this holds true for all of our different categories, you know, we are looking at data that happened during COVID. So I think there is a little bit of understanding with the fact that, you know, we were virtual for a significant amount of those 3 years. So just to keep that in mind as well. Does anyone have any questions on teaching and learning?
Do you think that the new Act 20 thing where, you know, we're banning the units of study, do you think that is going to be a key in our, you know, achievement gap reduction?
That's not an area that I directly work with, so I'm not able to speak on Act 20.
I'm not sure as well. And with this study, you know, we're really looking at the past data, not really looking at what we're going to do what we are going to be doing moving forward. We're really just kind of looking at that past. But that's a good question.
Nancy, I think everyone in this room hopes so.
So next, looking at student services, and these were areas 1, 4, and 6. So we did a lot of self-evaluation on our disciplinary actions, and we found that within our disciplinary hearings, they created a calibration system to ensure that they are equitable first across schools and second across racial groups. The actual report goes into a lot of detail as to, you know, what the disciplinary hearings were and what, you know, we're continuing to work for to make sure that they're, you know, equitable for every student. In reviewing our expulsions, we noticed that there were a lot of students who were expelled for drug violations, weapons, and safety threats. In response to that, in 21-22, student services created lessons around AODA and weapons awareness for students. And so we just, you know, keep trying to build off of that and ensure that we're following our policy and whatnot with student expulsions as well. Obviously, we had a dip during COVID when we were virtual, so that was good to see. And then when we're looking at awarding scholarships and recognition and achievement, I think this is definitely an area of improvement where we want to build a district-wide tracking system around awarding scholarships and collection of data. As you probably saw in the report, not every high school was collecting scholarship data the same way. And so after doing this review, we realized, you know, that would be really helpful to have just one system, district-wide tracking, just to make sure that we're, you know, noticing, you know, who is getting scholarships, including tracking disaggregated student data as well. And then the student services section as well covers methods and practices and materials and instruction, counseling, and pupil assessment testing. And so one of the areas that was introduced during the 21-22 school year was creating an advisory and a morning meeting to allow for students to feel more engaged and supported in their schools. And right away, I do think that the student services team would agree that that certainly they did see an impact with that, and they did see more student engagement. They're continuing to work on bias reviews of overall curriculum and materials used in classrooms. And they're also working towards a comprehensive school counseling curriculum by the 24-25 school year. They've started that in the elementary area, but working on getting that through K through 12 by that school year. They also are continuing with their efforts to achieve equality of educational opportunity and non-discrimination. So kind of similar to what I was speaking on earlier, they conducted that equity survey, and that survey really gave us a lot of good data. And from that, they created the Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Task Force that's been working for about 2 years on that survey data that they've received, and it's continuing to work on that. And really their goal is to ensure that every student has social, emotional, and academic support needed to achieve their highest potential. So I know that's still a work in progress. And I think what they've been doing so far is really good work with that. And I think that's really noted too in the report as well. Does anyone have any questions on the student services area? All right. Then we'll move to the last area of athletics. And I think this is one where COVID-19, certainly you can really see the hit of what COVID did with our athletics and our different extracurricular programs. It certainly impacted our students' ability to participate. Even after the district restarted its athletic programs, we still had restrictions in place, which could cause a barrier to participation. I think these next few years and, prepping for our next self-evaluation 5 years down the road, we can certainly hope to see a bounce back of our students being able to participate and wanting to participate in our athletics and other programs. We're really hoping to see at least a 60% participation, and that includes all of our groups. So based on race, gender, disability, and socioeconomic status. We were really working close to get to that number, and then COVID hit, and of course that shut down a lot of our programs, and so I think we're on the rebuilding end of that. We also have continued to work on our opportunities and school approved activities. So that's where students are encouraged to participate and create new activities where needed. So if they see something that, or if they think of something that they want to participate in and we don't have that program, we do have a system for them to, propose a different type of activity and see that come to light too. So I think that's really important to keep in mind as well with respect to athletics, and then obviously other co-curricular activities too. Yeah.
I just want to mention this is something I think that when we look at our facility master plan and other opportunities, Green Bay has typically done an excellent job of making sure that we have activities for every student that an interest is met there. Tim, you've done a great job on that, and your team has done a great job on that. And stressing the fact that it's not just the athletics, but the activities to get our students engaged with it. One of the things that I've noticed as a parent is sometimes transportation becomes an issue. And I think it becomes a opportunity for us when we're looking at our borders and our boundaries and our facility use to make sure that we can try and think outside of the box and get students engaged wherever we are able to, and figure out ways to assist with the transportation part more so. We shouldn't have a student not able to participate because they can't get to another high school because there's a United team over there. And that's not anything against anyone in the district. It's just something that it's a great opportunity for us to grow and make sure we can hit those numbers with it. So I encourage the rest of the board members to take that into consideration when we're looking at other items that we're addressing. But Tim, you and your team do a fantastic job on making sure that we have opportunities for students to find some way to belong to their school and their community through activities and athletics and the different things we offer. So keep it up. I think we'll surpass that 60% soon.
Does anyone else have any other questions? I just want to take a minute and thank everyone who's here today who helped with this report. It was a lot of work. We started this back in April. Everyone was very understanding because we had a shortened timeline due to me being out on maternity leave in October. So I just want to thank everyone for all of their help with this. And I think that, this provides us with a lot of good data for us to have. We really dug in deep into all the different areas within what DPI was asking us to do. And I think, moving forward, this is going to set us up for some really good success, because at the end of each section, we're really looking forward. Okay, what can we do to improve? And I think there's a lot of really good ideas in this. So I really appreciate everyone's time on this.
I would just say too that it's one thing to gather all this data, but it's another thing to have next steps. So what does the data say? And then now what do we do? What's the action? What pushes it? And I can see that you guys are working on that. So thank you. Go ahead, Brian.
I would encourage anyone in the community that's paying attention to this, either YouTube or our audience members, to look at each high school and each middle school and see the breadth of activities and clubs that this district offers. They will be amazed at how many different groups we offer and the support the district provides for it. So check it out.
Yeah, if that's it, then if there's no other questions, once again, thank you so much for your time, and thank you guys for coming today. And yeah, we're one step closer to checking this off the list then.
Thanks, guys. Okay, next on our agenda is the charter school update. And I believe that is Dr. Tiller.
Yes, board members, this is just a standard update timeline for school boards as it relates to the contract between the charter school that we have at our Northeast Wisconsin School of Innovation and the district. This is just a shared memo, as you can see from the board docs, just briefly a timeline that the board has to be aware of.
All right. Did anyone have any questions, concerns? Okay, then we're going to move on to C, district assessment calendar. Dr. Tiller?
So board members, the only change on this was the elementary and secondary assessment calendars is the dates that they will be administered. That's the only change on that. All secondary students will take interim assessments in the Canvas Mastery Connect this time around platform, allowing for immediate impact on the results of the assessment as opposed to waiting for the assessment. So they will get immediate impact on their assessments. Also, as you enter in your assessments into Mastery Connect, which is great about Mastery Connect, is it will tell you where the grade level that your assessments will be at. So if you're in the 6th grade and you've been entering assessments and you think is at 6th grade, it will tell you exactly what grade level your assessments is at.
So I sat in a meeting, I think we all had a little bit of input from staff over the last week. Nancy Chartier waxed poetic almost about this the abilities of Canvas to give very prompt feedback on assessments and how that will help teachers. So anyway, this is gonna hopefully will prove that that investment that the district has made in Canvas will be just a really ready tool for our staff. And I'm kind of looking forward to seeing how that looks in as it becomes more and more operational. Go ahead, Brian.
When we spoke earlier regarding some of these, Dr. Chartier and I had a conversation. I appreciate the fact that the district has cut as many this is gonna come, has really focused on making sure that we could focus on teaching and not assessing on this. So the amount that we've had, we addressed earlier as a board, and it appears to remain the same. So we're focused a lot on the state assessments that are required, and then letting our teachers focus on teaching as opposed to assessing, if that makes sense. I hope that's clear to the rest of the board members, what I'm trying to say.
That's something that came out of COVID when the system was so deeply stressed and our teachers and staff were so overwhelmed. And the board made a commitment and staff followed through on it. And I think we made some real progress on that. So anyway, anybody else have feedback or questions? Okay, then we can move on to D, curriculum updates and course essential documents. Dr. Tiller?
So board members, this is the adoption. This will be an action that will be asked of the board members to take vote on the 25th. This will be an adoption of the content essential standards, which is the course description, the topics at a glance, the essential learning, the power standards, the assessments, inquiry process and practice, and adopted resources. If you look at your slide, you can see this will be in all areas: math, AP calculus, social studies, elementary social studies, middle school social studies. So all of the areas that we will be looking for the curriculum updates in that particular area, and we'll be asking the board for a vote on the 25th.
Okay. Any feedback, any questions? Okay. We're going to move on then to E, Head Start Program Guidelines and Operational Procedures, Handbook and Policy Council Bylaws. Claude, did you have? something?
So board members, each year, the board goes through this and sees this is just a standard document from the Head Start Department that updates our program and operational guidelines and procedures, do so that we can vote on we'll be asking for action item on the 25th so that we can meet the federal guidelines as presented. We update the prices, for example, of our community assessments, our self-assessments, of the Head Start policy and the annual basis. So you can see that in there as well. So it's just an annual thing that we do every year to meet the federal guidelines in Head Start.
Nancy, did you have any feedback on this process at all? No, okay. Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's when it comes to, when we talk about Head Start, it's probably a good chance to remind everyone, this is federal dollars and a federal program. There's a lot of oversight, huge layers of oversight. However, we have two really good programs here in town, and they are benefiting our youngest kids a lot. They do fine work. I've always been so impressed by what they do for not only tiny little children, but also their families, their moms and dads. So, okay, we can move on then, unless anyone has anything else. Under operations, we're going to next talk about the clean energy resolution update, and I think who's handling, is that you, Josh, or no? Energy update. Okay. So we're starting to move on this. This got a little bit, not even a little bit, it got derailed
And
by
yeah.
COVID.
And the reason it got derailed is this resolution was passed by the board in May of 2020.
Yeah, a lot of stuff going on in me.
A lot of stuff going on at that time. I think it was our first board meeting back virtually. So this is first of all to remind you, Laura and Andrew, who were here to take that vote, and I think it's probably new to the rest of you. The main reason we are bringing this forward, though, as we're trying to get this going, is it does require the district to put together an advisory committee, which is now governed by policy 185, which you passed a few weeks ago. So we're looking for clarity on how to move forward with the creation of such a committee.
So we'll have to do another charter which I'm sure you're all really excited about. But this one will be so different because it's gonna be a standing committee. It won't be like, half a dozen meetings and then it'll be over. It'll be a standing committee that people will probably cycle in and out of. I mean, it's just, it's been kind of languishing and now, we're gonna take this up and get it done. As part of the resolution, I've got a copy here. This is an ambitious, resolution. It requires a lot of us as a board and as a district. But as we head into a period where we might be doing, considering building and modifications and things like that, it would be good to have this committee up and running so that they can help guide the work and remind us as often as needed how we've made this commitment to sustainability as a district. So is there anything other than just kind of acknowledging that that we're going to take this work up, Josh, that you wanted to say?
No, I would say please do read it. It does commit the district to action up well past my retirement. So that's something to consider when putting this committee together. This commits the district to action through 2050. I appreciate you highlighting the need to maybe integrate this work in with any future capital investments in our buildings. And
It's my hope too that we're going to hopefully bring kids and students into this to some degree, to link it educationally into our, hopefully maybe our curriculum. I know this is very vague right now, but there's a lot of ways that this committee could influence and guide our work. So, and you're right. I like what you said about this is work that we won't see the end of. Like, we're not going to see this. We won't be around to see this. So when we talk about this, we're talking about generations that are coming, and we need to think in those terms.
one other thing, if you'll permit me, that has changed since 2020 is there's a fair amount of federal grant money available for these sorts of projects through the Inflation Reduction Act. A lot of money being invested, particularly in schools for this sort of thing.
What was the name of the fund that also was put in place 3 years ago to help us? Yeah,
That's a Fund 46 Capital Improvement Fund
Yeah.
that was established in May of 2020. I think we can touch that money in June of 2025.
Okay.
So there is some money set aside for capital improvements in that fund.
Yeah, I mean, it's modest right now, but it's hopefully it'll grow with over time. And then also, there's some discussion about linking this to our district wellness policy. There's a lot of creativity, I think, that might be a part of this that I'm kind of really looking forward to exploring as a board and as a district. So, as you can tell, I'm really excited for this. So go ahead, James.
So I don't know if this is a question for you or for Angie. When we talk about a modest amount in Fund 46, do we have a number there? And when I look at this, the item number 3 is what jumps off the page at me, and that is that we've committed ourselves to try to meet a goal of having 50% of our energy for district operations being offset or carbon neutral by 2035, which overlaps the 10-year master facility plan that we're working now. And I know that the referendum last November established a project to install 1 solar grid. You've identified there's grant money, and I recognize that there's a ton of grant money out there, but is there a plan, or would it be the authority of a advisory committee that we put together to grow the amount in Fund 46 to fund capital improvements, or would that be referendum money? Do we we have insight or line of sight in how we fund this? Other than grant money?
There is a balance in Fund 46. I'm not sure where that stands at this moment. I do know that it'll be in the budget documents coming to the board in October, because all your funds that carry a fund balance we have to show the fund balance there. You typically don't, I mean, you wouldn't put referendum money into a Fund 46 to save it and stuff like that, though.
So just one last point, then I'll just release. Is also, this was 2020. Are we using April 13th, 2020 as our baseline operational energy? So if you're going to say I'm going to cut 50%, the question is 50% of what? And if we say that, then any right sizing consolidation work that is proposed in the master facility plan will naturally move us towards the goal of less energy output and towards that 50%. I just want to make sure that I understand and we establish the baseline that we're measuring against, because it's important for me to know that.
Brian.
Obviously, the use of electricity during COVID in our buildings dropped dramatically. So shifting that, I agree with what you're saying, coming up with some way to guess what's our best number on that is probably a key part when we're looking at that. The other thing I was going to mention is, this once again, with our 25-year, once in a generation opportunity to do this right, this gives our students an opportunity to learn about green energy. If we can get these plans in, get them career ready for green energy jobs and legislate, just this is a great opportunity for us to aggressively chase some of that federal money to make some impacts here. So.
And I know, I mean, in conjunction to what the district is committed to, I know that the city and the county, they're all kind of moving in the same direction. Hopefully our community will have buy-in from our community. And also the last referendum, the solar panels that are going to be going up by King, it will be paid for with referendum dollars. To me, that shows a commitment from our community. Go ahead, Brian.
Even utilizing our parking lots to get some EV stations set up in this area and working with the city to utilize on both spots. And when we're looking at our transportation issues of our fleet being replaced for certain uses of getting that opportunity. So I think partnering with the city and the county is not a bad option on this as well. So
there's just a ton of things about this that could be really innovative. Of course, as always, we're restricted financially, and that'll always be a concern. So I don't know how that plays out. I just know that our board and our community are embracing this work. So anyway, anybody else?
Fund 46 fund balance currently sits at 6.75 million. And it's earning interest.
Okay, that's good to know. All right. Anybody else? Oh,
So
James.
I think you're right. We need a charter written, and as far as authoring it and next steps on that, do we have a plan? I think we may have a volunteer, but
Lynn.
I will do it.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. Thank you. This drafting of charters is going to be an ongoing thing, and we're still pretty new at it. So, but we have some really good writers on our board. So, all right. Anything else, Dr. Tiller? Thank you, Josh. All right, next is B, modify the table of organization to add the student services interventionist and associated job description. Dr. Tiller?
Okay, board members, this is a grant we received. I want to repeat that. This is a grant we received So it's nobody adding anything additional to the district office building. We received a grant that will go out to 24, 25. The job title will be Student Service Interventionist. And then this job will have strategies around the students' need social emotional support. And it's going to be a position for 2 or 3. Again, I repeat, is a grant funded position. We will need the board to, we're asking that our board move on action on the 25th to grant, we move forward with this position.
Anybody have questions? Go ahead.
Dr. Tiller, where's the grant from and why are we so lucky to have it?
So that was special education department and Claudia's department. They went out and looked for that grant and they received it there, wrote it and received it there.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, next is reorganization of Human Services Department. Dr. Tiller?
Okay, so this is Doug Chatier's area. And what we did was that she had a couple resignations in that area. So we eliminated 2 level 5 clerical positions. And we-
Dr. Tiller,
This is a different one.
we're on human resources right now.
Okay, so that would be Mike.
Oh, yep.
Thank you.
It's okay. Mr. Freeze, greetings.
Good evening, everybody. Yes, as you know, former Director Randy Etten retired recently. And our recommendation relative to being financially responsible, becoming more efficient and modernizing in conjunction with your approval recently of the HRIS, we believe we can save the district well over $100,000 by doing some reorganization, promoting some internal folks on their career path a little bit and aligning our work a little bit more as outlined in the memo. So we're asking not for a backfill of Director Etten's position at this time, but rather allowing some of our staff to step into a space where they would take on some supervision and responsibilities, asking them to step into more decision-making advisement role rather than just carrying through on recommendations that previous administrators would make. So we appreciate the consideration for that. We've outlined it in the memo with the job descriptions that would be affiliated with it. And then we anticipate, bringing forward the names of the folks that would be voted on in a separate motion, correct, Kinsey, at the meeting?
These folks would report to you?
Yes, they would report to myself or Director Mary Lofi-Blahnik, the other director in the HR team.
Okay.
We've analyzed the staffing size in the district, over the years and believe that this helps, for lack of a better term, contribute to additional right sizing within our department. Dr. Tiller supported us bringing it forward with the proposal at this time.
I thought the categories were interesting, like breaking up these jobs more into categories was kind of what it was outlined in the memo there. So, or in the proposal, I should say. Any questions? Okay, I think we're good. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right. So next is reorganization of administrative support for teaching and learning department.
Now I think that's me. So in Dr. Chatier's department, we eliminated 2 level 5 clerical positions due to resignations. And we created a budget in the data management position for this department. And we're bringing it forth to the board as we move forward with that piece. To make a level management group level 5.
Okay. Questions? All right, we can move on then to the 2023-24 preliminary budget update. And that will be Ms. Robley. Hi, Angie.
Good evening, everybody. So you're gonna see a little bit of me to this month, next month. You guys will get sick of me.
No, I'm good with that.
Kinsey's gonna pull up the slide deck. We have a few slides, but really tonight, our focus is on a couple things. So we're gonna focus on that 24-25 budget deficit that we've been talking about for several months. Due to ESSER funding going away and that fiscal cliff being created because of it. We're also going to briefly touch on what you'll see in what you'll see in October for the 23-24 budget. We'll talk a little bit about mill rate, a little bit about levy. We're not going to dive into it too deep, but I do want to bring forward some things that that are going to occur with this upcoming budget because of the revenue limit authority that we've been given through the state and the state budget. We'll also talk a little bit about vouchers because we're going to see a large increase in voucher amount that we'll be levying in 23-24 due to a few things as well. So we're going to cover, those are the things we're going to cover tonight. I think something that's really important as well to kind of mention is when we see these numbers changing, right, we have to be aware that, like, you know I was here in May, right, and these numbers are changing all the time. So we base these, our projections on estimates, our best estimates that we have at the time. So, today is a point in time. These numbers will change as we move forward, but it's really a working document that we update, every day. So. All right, next slide. There we go. Okay, so let's start with that estimated 24-25 budget deficit. So good news for the district. That deficit has shrunk to about $6.5 million as of today. Let's say that. So when I was here back in May, we were looking at a $20 million deficit, which included that 8% CPI adjustment. The major reason why we're seeing such a decline or shrinkage of that deficit is because we received a lot more revenue than what we had anticipated originally once the state budget passed. So what I mean by that is when we're looking at that $12.2 million of revenue from the previous projection, that is due to the fact that Green Bay has always been a low revenue district. So we've always been conservative in our spending. So when those revenue limits took place back in 1993, we were at the bottom or the lowest level, right? We were locked into that low revenue. So what the state budget did for districts like Green Bay, we were allowed to move that low revenue ceiling up to 11,000 per pupil from 10,000. So what that meant for us in 23-24, that was an additional $1,000 per pupil that we have the authority to raise our revenue limit for. And then in addition to that, we've got an additional 325 per pupil coming on in 24-25. So in our original projection, we had put 350 and 350 for those 2 years. So that is where that $12.2 million of additional funding or additional authority that we have as a district to raise our revenue for that amount. Also included is, I guess, in our projections, when we talk about our projections, we're assuming that $1.3 million in cost reductions are included in the model and are being projected out. So this includes the closing of WEAC and then some other staff reductions through attrition that we are planning for. A very important point is that in that $6.5 million deficit, we have the 8% salary increase in there and projected out. And in 24-25, we're using the 4% salary increase because that's what they're estimating CPI to be at. Now, this doesn't lock the district into any commitments. It's just the estimate that we use when we're following that CPI. And then, of course, we all know that our ESSER funds must be spent by September 30th of 24. So that's what's creating that fiscal cliff. So are there any questions on this piece before I move forward into kind of what we're going to be looking at for mill rate and levy? Brian?
I just have a comment with that. While we're very happy with the increase that was approved in the state budget. Doesn't mean that's going to continue after that. So when we're looking at some of these cost saving things that we've been discussing, we have to keep that into consideration, that we don't know how long that's going to continue with us. So.
James?
I need you to clarify that. And the reason why I say that, because I had the same question, representing it as 1,000 and then 1,325 caught me off guard, because once you raise it 1,000, we're at 11 and then 325 on top of that. Is it possible that the low revenue or low spend increase to $11,000 or that $1,000 go away? Now it's stuck there, right? Okay, so you're just saying that we might not still continue to get 325 year over year then at that point, or it may go down.
I'm going to say this as an elected official that, and correct me if I'm wrong in that there is no guarantees in the 2026, 2027 state budget after on that point. So what I'm getting at is, while the governor was able to, and the state legislator increased it, when we're making these permanent decisions or these, addressing the structural deficit ongoing, we can't get all excited because we got it for 2 years. We still will have those difficult decisions as a board. So hopefully that clarified.
And then just a couple follow-ups. So to your point, we'll talk about that a little bit on what we have moving forward for that next biennium budget. But I think something to take away from this is that $6.5 million really gives us a target number as a leadership team, so we can start to strategize how we're going to reduce expenditures for that 24-25 school year to close that gap and to balance the budget in 24-25. So again, this number will shift a little bit, but it's, that's really what it is that's our target. And that's what we'll, work as a team to reduce that to balance the budget in 24-25. James.
So in this $6 million budget, when we were looking at CPI and that increase of 8%, there were discussions and there was a push to have the district go back and make sure that we had that built in. So can you speak at all as to amounts that you were able to go back and through cost cutting measures, return and add to our ability to meet budget? Do you understand what I'm saying?
You mean how we got from 20 to 6.5 million?
I mean that we were able to give 8% increases to staff. That was CPI, right? We recognized that was in the face of impending fiscal cliff and other. So the district, as part of that conversation, went back and entertained additional cost-cutting measures in order to get to the number and not increase it more than it already was, right? We were looking at $20 million and then an 8% increase to staff, which we all agreed to, and that was the right thing to do, but it jeopardized our ability to close the gap on the deficit. So is there any reporting out that the district can do around the cost cutting measures? Or if not, we can go back and we can make that part of another update.
Let's do that, James, because it's a working document right now. So until we finalize a few more things moving forward, then we can come back and report on that. Does that work? Okay, thanks. Okay, so moving on. So we're going to look at this document. I apologize that it's a little bit small, but it's a document that we're used to seeing. It's our Baird projection model. So a couple of things that I want to highlight here is when we are looking at the 24-25 column, we see that 6.5 deficit, right? $6.5 million deficit. And then when we move forward, I wouldn't so much focus on what those numbers actually are, because that's another biennium budget from the state, right? So we don't know what's coming, but in there, to Brian's point, $325 is what we have in there per pupil, because that's what, Governor Evers has signed in forever, but that can change. And most likely will when it comes to another state budget. But What we really need to kind of focus on and highlight is that we still are facing a structural deficit, meaning our expenditures are outpacing the revenues that we're receiving. So that means as a district, we still have to continue, right, to strategize, to reduce costs and expenditures moving forward. And then also, our declining enrollment is also there. So we've been talking about that as well. And as we watch that decline in enrollment, that's why we're doing the things that we're doing, and we're addressing our structural facilities through our facilities master plan to kind of address that declining enrollment, because eventually, right, that means less revenue coming into the district as that enrollment declines. So those are a couple things that I wanted to highlight. So let's talk a little bit about revenue limit authority. Just a refresh first on our revenue limit equation, which means property taxes plus state aid equals how much we can raise as a district. So that's important because the difference between this year's biennium budget, state budget, and the one that we saw 2 years ago, or our last biennium budget, there's a big difference between that one and this one. The last biennium budget froze revenue limits for districts, right? We didn't get any additional revenue, or weren't able to raise additional revenue to put funds into the classroom. What we did see was all of that money was funneled into that equalized aid pot, which essentially just equated to property tax relief, right? So if you've got property taxes plus aid, you increase that bucket, that decreases your taxes, because this number didn't change, our revenue limit authority. So it's important to discuss that, because this year, right, this biennium budget has now given us the authority, right, with that revenue limit per pupil of $1,000 and then $325, that's raising our authority to raise revenues, right? So that means either taxes, right? We got to increase taxes, or we have to increase aid. So the amount of money that the state has put into the equalized aid hasn't fully offset, right? That raise in property taxes. So it hasn't fully offset it. So meaning that's why you're seeing a 15% increase in our revenue, in our levy, our operational levy. And why you're seeing a slight increase in that mill rate is because the amount of money that was put into equalized aid didn't fully offset the raise in property taxes to get that levy to where it is now with our new funding authority. So with that being said, I think that there are a couple of points to make there. So because of that, our mill rate is increasing, or proposed. This is estimate, right? We don't have final numbers. We won't have until October. Like third Friday count is coming, equalized property growth, equalized aid. So all of those numbers will be finalized. So this is an estimate, but we're estimating that mill rate is gonna go from $8 to $8.47. Although it seems like, oh my gosh, right? We have to remember that last year, the $8 was historically the lowest mill rate that the district has seen since we could look back and try to find when, so it was at its lowest rate. And then comparing it to 21-22 at $9.03, we're still well below that number. So that increase is due to the fact that, equalized aid isn't fully offsetting it. But what the state did do was they significantly increased their funding by about 20% into the school levy credit pot of money. So that's not included in the district's calculation, but as an individual on your property tax bill, right? We're expecting to see on most, right, on average, that levy credit to increase as well, because they significantly increase that pot of money. So outside that will, on a property tax bill, that will offset that levy increase as well to some extent. So I think that's important just to note that is also out there. So I guess that's really the highlight. I did it, for again, in October, when the board approves the levy, right? This is an increase in the levy because of that funding authority that the state has given to us.
Questions? It's a lot. Do you have a number of how much money this flows from the state through our district and into private charter schools?
Well, the next slide is on vouchers.
Oh, okay.
So
Yeah,
maybe we can,
Vouchers,
we'll
yeah.
discuss that and
Okay.
then, okay,
absolutely.
so we're ready to
Please.
move on.
All right.
Okay. So vouchers. So every year we talk about vouchers, but specifically this year, our voucher costs are expected to increase by an estimated $2.5 million in 23-24. So an estimated $11.4 million that we will be levying in comparison to the prior year at 8.9 million. I think a really important point to emphasize here is this is not due to a large increase in new students receiving a voucher, because we have really seen that number kind of stabilize over the last couple of years. So last year, I think we saw about 25 new voucher students. This year, we're expecting about the same in our projection. But really, it's due, that large increase of $2.5 million is really due to the per pupil increases that were also given to the voucher payments or the voucher students. So in this chart, what I'm showing is what was the voucher amount, or for K-8, 9-12 special needs, our independent charter school or ICS, and then what we received. Okay, so in 23, that's the amount for the voucher students, and then what we also received for 24, for 25, and then that total increase on the bottom is actually the increase over the course of the 2 years. So what vouchers received with this biennium budget, and then what we have received as a district. So again, the way vouchers work is that we levy for this amount. So we, out of that $112 million operational levy that we just saw on that previous slide, 11.4 of this will come in, and then we'll go out to pay for the vouchers.
I know that this isn't your area, but I just can't kind of pass up the opportunity to point out that that money leaves our district. It goes into schools that do not have elected school boards. You can't look at their budgets. You can't look, I don't even know if you can attend their meetings. There's no oversight, is my point, for that money, but it flows through our district and directly out to those schools. So, Brian.
And looking at the numbers, the increase that they've received is larger than the increase through fiscal year 25. If I'm reading that right, a K-8 school, the increase is $1,838 compared to $1,325, and not even looking at the 9-12.
And also the money is going to schools that are not made to submit that 47-page equity report that we just went through, that examined equity in every single aspect of education.
Go ahead.
So is there any other questions?
I just want to just double check here and make sure nothing's changed on this, but am I correct that if a student attends a voucher school until the third Friday, and then the school can expel them under whatever criteria that they wish, and then we take them back and we get 0% of the money for that semester. Is that correct? We might get it again at the semester break if they do it on the third Friday in September, but the rest of the whole semester would be on the house over on this side.
Yeah, I believe, Andrew, that it's quarterly. So they look at your third Friday count, based on that September count for, for 2 of the quarterly payments, and then they base it off of the January count. So it is prorated, throughout the course of the year. Now the specifics, it's hard to kind of sift through that information. They aren't that specific, but I do know that it's quarterly, but I'm not sure how they how they specify, but I'm sure they're looking at that enrollment and who's enrolled and who's not.
It's almost as if taxpayers were funding two different systems. Yeah, one has many, many layers of accountability. You can't turn around without something holding you accountable. And one that has, well, let's just say not the same level of accountability. So anyway. Anybody else have any other? Okay. Thank you, Angie. Okay, moving on to our last item, under board assignments. We're going to have discussion regarding trustee school assignments. This was requested by Brian, and I'm going to let you drive this because I'm not sure exactly what your goals were here.
Thank you for having this added to the agenda. My main question was just to have discussion among the board members of what practices do you have as far as your assigned schools? Like I have, for instance, I have Green Bay West, so I'm trying to make sure I can get to their events and just what responsibilities come with that. And I don't think we have a policy on it. I don't think we have ever had any discussion on it. So with the start of the school year, I just wanted to get your input on what your plans were within your buildings that were assigned to. So
This, I think, I mean, my experience having been on the board, and Andrew can speak to this too. To me, it depends a lot on people's, their work requirements, their family, like what are you able to do? What I do is I always send out an email to all the principals and that of the schools that I'm assigned to, and ask them to please include me in events that they're having a family engagement, a staff engagement, community engagement. Please let me know, and I will come to what I am able to come to. And that's kind of always how I've done it. But I have a lot more flexibility in my calendar than some of you have, and that's how I approach it. Go ahead.
And my intent on this conversation was not to have like a contest to who's in the buildings more or whatever else with that.
Right.
And I appreciate the email that was sent, just discussing policies that other districts have. And again, this is not my goal is to have any gotcha moments or anything like that. I just wanted to hear from other board members with it. Andrew, I'm kind of curious with yours having a senior statesman on the board here.
Yeah, so getting back into the swing of things now, after the worst of COVID, I would try to, if my schedule allowed, I would try to get at least a short visit to, sometimes I would get to every building briefly over the course of a school year, or once I wasn't completely self-employed anymore, it was maybe 2 years. Excuse me. But I would try to prioritize the ones on my list. I would try to make sure I was getting to those at least a couple of times. And given that I know that the schools are very generous in inviting board members to events, and there would be, I bet you probably could have one on, close to every day of the year. My thought is that it's probably a good idea to try to keep an eye, especially on the whatever, and this could differ by school, whatever to a school is a signature event for that school and their culture and their history. I would, if it was a school that was on my list, I would try to make those when I could. So I might try to get to most schools over the course of the next year, but maybe hit a couple of events up at my the ones on my list. I guess that's how I would look at it. It's look at these first because they're on my list, but also certainly visit other schools too. I don't think that it's probably I don't know, that's probably a good idea to, and not that anyone's asking for it, try to, specify, but as far as just general guidance, I think I look at it, first among equals list for me, because they're the ones that are assigned to me, and others have someone assigned to look at those schools first. That's just me.
Anybody else have anything they'd like to? Go ahead.
I have a question. You said you sent an email to the principals of the schools you're assigned. What is the easiest way for me to find out who the principals are of the schools I've been assigned and what their email addresses are?
You can just go online and Google them, and each page has the principal, a picture of the principal for that
Go
school.
online to the GBAPS.
I just go to each individual school's website, and you can scroll down and it has their specific information. So that's what I did this time. And then when you go to do like a group email, you can just type in their name and their email come up. So so go ahead, Brian.
Lynn, I set up a group that's 2023 Mills schools with the principals on there, and I can show you how to do that. So it automatically just sends it out to that group. So after the meeting, I can show you how to do that.
I know how to set up a group. I just don't know what the principals' names are.
Yeah. Well, you're new. It'll come, but that's probably the easiest way to do it. So go ahead, Laura.
What I did was I just went to gbaps.org and then our schools and looked them up each individually. But it would be nice to just have a list of who they all are.
Yeah.
But that was the most easy way I found to do it.
Yeah. Go ahead, Claude.
So our office can produce that for you. No problem. So I'll have a list for you tomorrow. All right.
Fantastic. Thank you. And maybe it already exists somewhere and we just, like it's possible that it's already out there somewhere with their email addresses and what schools but if you're brand new, like you're not going to know all these principals, and also they change pretty, it's every year a handful of them change. So one of the things I just wanted to mention, one of the thoughts I was having is that when I'm going to visit a school, I always check in at the front desk. I don't just wander around in schools. That is a big giant no. and check in with the principal if they're available and say hi. So go ahead, Brian.
On that same level, giving them a heads up if you have availability. Dr. Tiller, would you like just to be CC'd on those, just so you're also aware if we're going? I'm not talking about like if I'm going to watch a basketball game or something, but if I'm doing a school visit, I would assume you would like just a heads up so board members aren't just trolling about the building. Okay.
Anybody else? Brian, does does this help you kind of with what you were hoping to do?
Yeah, I had plans, like I said, it's similar to what you two have said, and I'm just curious of other ones or if that kind of sparks some interest or ideas on how to address it. I think it would also help, especially if there's a big concert going on or something, that then we know we won't have a quorum at it, or, just the expectations on that. So you don't see his hand up right now because he's behind you, but Andrew's up.
Go ahead, Andrew.
I think we're getting a little, unless it's truly, there have been court rulings and things about a concert or a football game or a social event, where does it, there has to be a line of reason, and I will apologize and say I was wrong if there is something where there have been actual quorum problems about a large public event. But come on, where do you draw the line? Do we have to post if 4 of us are going to be at the Packer game? I think and for every time I say something like this, I bite my tongue 3 times and I don't, that there's hyper aware and hyper vigilant about some of these things. And yeah, I myself have called someone if I found myself in a very small gathering, maybe with and there was a 4th board member. That happened to me once. I was the 4th board member that showed up at a small community event, But I don't know. I think we need some, I don't think we should be worrying too, nor do I plan to try to find out if there's an event in an auditorium or a large gymnasium. I don't really worry about if there's going to be more than 3 board members there. I certainly wouldn't meet with them all in a small group.
Go ahead, Brian.
Andrew, I fully appreciate that, and that's not where I intended to go with it. It's more just so we know the events, ones that we should really strive to attend and as a board member, and ones we can strive to attend as a community member with it. So if West is my school, I can still go, obviously I can still go to a concert at East with it, but just knowing that events are taking place at West, I should make an effort with that as well. And I just want to kind of stress that with my fellow board members, if they're on the same page with that. If there's an event at one of our schools, we're trying to get there. If there's a concern at one of our schools, we're the contact on the board of, obviously they're going through other chains that have been established that are well documented on there, that their concern should be with the principal for, the standard procedure with that, just so we know who our contacts are, and to encourage our fellow board members to go and get into the buildings, because the teachers appreciate it, the parents appreciate it, the staff, the administration, everyone in that building, I think, appreciates seeing us in the buildings, and it helps us do our jobs more efficiently.
I was only replying to the minor, the relatively small sub point where I thought there was something about making sure there weren't 4 of us there that maybe I misheard, or maybe you were saying it in jest, but I just think there's a point where we need to, there's a point where I don't believe that it is actually a legally binding thing if it's a very large. I hope more than 4 board members go to the East-West game, because it can go to the East-West game because it's a very significant, national level significant rivalry, hopefully, and I don't think we need to post it.
Melissa, do you have any guidance on this? Thank you for, I know that every once in a while you give us a tiny little tutorial on what we can and cannot do. And it's probably a good time to do it again.
So I agree with Andrew. If it's a social event where board business will not be conducted, you're not discussing board business, it's not something that needs to be posted. But for example, when you go to the WASB convention, that's clearly a function of the board, and you need to post that as a meeting. Your retreat, clearly a function of the board, needs to be posted. But if you're all lucky enough to be at the Packer game next weekend, that would not need to be posted.
I won't be there.
But please don't all be in the same box at the Packer game. I know, same section.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Brian.
But Melissa, you can just answer from there. That's why we also, at graduation, because it's an official board duty, that's why we limit the number per ceremony that's there, so.
Okay, yeah. What you said, Brian, really, as far as going to events, helping you do your job better. I have found that helps me do my job better. I have the best conversations with parents, with students at some of these events. They find their way to you and have things they need to say. So that's really good. Anybody else? Yeah, the spiffy name tags. So anybody else? Okay. Then that completes our agenda for tonight. And with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Oppose? All right. Thank you, everybody. We're adjourned.
You have been watching the Green Bay Area Public School District's Board of Education meeting. Please visit the school district's website, www.gbaps.org, for more information on the district and future meeting dates. If you cannot fully access the information on this video, please let us know the accessibility issue you are having by calling 920-448-2025 or by email at communications@gbaps.org. We will try to provide the information to you in an alternative format and/or make the necessary improvements to make the information accessible.